What's up, horror lovers? The night was thick, the kind that swallows flashlight beams whole, and a single dead porch bulb blinked like a black eye at the end of the dirt road. That tiny darkness was all it took for dread to start slithering under 19-year-old Ellie's skin. She was supposed to be tucked away at university chasing term papers, not depression-drained and stranded in her parents' rural farmhouse while they enjoyed a city weekend. 20 minutes to the nearest badge, miles of cornfields in every other direction, and a community tradition older than the telephone. When danger crawls close, you kill one porch light. No sirens, no screams, just darkness calling to darkness. Ellie stared at the Smith's extinguished lamp and felt the air turn syrup-heavy, carrying the metallic taste of a storm that wasn't in the forecast. She muttered, "This better be a busted bulb." But her pulse was already writing a different story. Ellie's house creaked around her, timber bones shifting like they knew a secret. Inside, framed photos glimmered, a sister who escaped 3 years earlier, parents smiling at barbecues, while outside, crickets performed their funeral dirge symphony. She remembered her mother's voice drilling the neighborhood code. One light out means run over and check, no exceptions. 10 years of harvest festivals and snow day potlucks had welded the Smiths into that pact. They were gentle souls, mid-50s, always handing out spare zucchini and unsolicited life tips. If they'd flipped their switch, something was shredding their peace. Ellie slipped into boots, grabbed a phone whose signal flickered as badly as that dead bulb, and stepped into the night. The gravel sighed beneath her soles, and every shadow seemed to lean forward, eavesdropping. She rehearsed casual lines, but worry kept editing them into pleas. The moon looked jaundiced, and the smell of cut hay carried an undercurrent of rust. The Smith porch felt colder than the rest of the yard, as if someone had pulled a plug on all warmth. Ellie raised a knuckle, but the door cracked first, revealing Mrs. Smith half hidden, faced the shade of paper left too long in the sun. Her eyes darted like caged moths. Behind her, the hallway light glowed sickly, illuminating nothing but tense wallpaper. Ellie performed her drama club improv, cheerful, clueless. "Hey, Mrs. Smith, your porch light's out again. Need another bulb?" For a heartbeat, the older woman's shoulders loosened, relief flooding then draining away just as fast. "Oh, you've got a good eye," she chirped, falseness dripping from every syllable. "We'll fix it tomorrow." She never let the door swing wider than a prayer book. Ellie's nose caught an odd scent, sweat cut with iron, and her stomach twisted. "Do your parents know you're here?" Mrs. Smith added, voice suddenly robotic. "Maybe tell them you're headed home. Stay safe." The words clanged like dropped knives. Ellie smiled, nodded, retreated, but the phrase "stay safe" echoed, wrong emphasis, rehearsed cadence. Mrs. Smith knew Ellie's parents were out of town. Coffee gossip guaranteed that. So why pretend otherwise unless she couldn't speak freely? Ellie jogged back through the dark, every cricket chirp morphing into a footstep behind her. Inside, she deadbolted the door, fingers trembling. The living room smelled of lemon polish and old fireplace ash, normally comforting. Tonight it felt like a museum set built for an audience of predators. She typed 911 once, erased it, whispered curses at her imagination, then dialed anyway. Dispatcher voice, calm, skeptical, but a car was rolling. 20 minutes. Ellie watched the Smith house from her bedroom window. Curtains parted just enough for a voyeur's sliver. Phone clutched like a relic. Her ears filled with her own pulse, a distant drum. Red and blue eventually painted the trees, and 2 officers strolled up the Smith driveway like bored tourists. Ellie prayed they'd kick in the door. Instead they chatted, nodded, and emerged smiling casual. "False alarm," they radioed. Ellie's relief tasted fake, like sugar-free gum. A patrol car crawled toward her mailbox, routine reassurance, and an officer repeated what Mrs. Smith had fed them. They were fine, visiting with their son. The phrase sliced through Ellie's fog. "Son, no photo albums, no guest room clutter, no extra plate at potlucks." When the cruiser departed, the Smith porch stayed dark. Ellie scrolled comments on a horror forum for sanity and found none. Someone suggested the sun line was code. Her brain, wired on insomnia and too many no-sleep threads, latched onto it like teeth on bone. She phoned her sister, hunted family recollections. No child existed. The lies lined up like footprints. Midnight bled into 1 a.m. Wind rattled shingles like fingernails. Ellie tried her parents. Voicemail. Tried again. Static. Her sister's Skype window glowed. Pixel guardian angel, urging her not to play hero. Yet downstairs, the porch gun safe was locked, combination known only to Dad. So she armored herself with the next best thing. Information. Another 911 call, voice steadier now. They don't have a son. Something's wrong. Please hurry. Dispatcher sighed, promised another unit. Ellie tasted guilt for crying wolf, but fear trumped courtesy. Outside, every tree leaned closer, branches like crooked antennae tuned to unseen malice. She killed her own porch light, first time ever, to avoid becoming a spotlighted target, then waited, a lone sentinel in pajama armor. Floorboards popped behind her, normal house settle sounds, yet each pop mapped a possible footstep. Sweat traced her spine, cooling, reheating, a fever of dread. Sirens finally shattered the quiet. No stealth this round. 2 cruisers rolled hard, tires grinding gravel like bones. Ellie pressed to the window. Officers fanned out, guns drawn, flashlights knifing through curtains. A scream, Mrs. Smith, flashed through the night, cut short. Glass shattered, then a shape vaulted from the back door. A scarecrow in mud-streaked denim sprinting for the treeline. A beam nailed him. Commands barked. The figure dropped, swallowed by shouting uniforms. Ellie's lungs forgot how to breathe. Blue strobes flickered off her wallpaper like underwater lightning. An ambulance slid in, white and hungry. Medics hurried inside the Smith house, rolled out Mr. Smith shaped in sheets blotched darker than the night. Ellie clamped a hand over her mouth, a half-sob escaping. The iron smell on the breeze was no metaphor now. It was real, metallic, undeniable. A young officer crossed Ellie's yard, boots suctioning in damp soil. He took her statement under the porch's single working bulb, insects kamikaze diving the light. His notebook pages fluttered in the night's breath. Yes, she'd visited at 10 p.m. Yes, the wife seemed cornered. No, she hadn't heard screams before police arrived. Questions felt endless, but he thanked her for her nerves of steel, dark-humored praise, considering her knees were jelly. He couldn't say much, protocol, yet Ellie learned enough. The intruder had broken in hours earlier, hiding, waiting. Mr. Smith confronted him and paid in blood. Motives? Not drugs, not burglary, maybe obsession, maybe a twisted acquaintance. Ellie pictured that porch bulb, a mute SOS missed by everyone but her, and nausea rose. She asked if the Smiths would live. The officer offered a tight nod, specter of a smile. Sometimes horror scripts pause before the final reel. Dawn smeared pink over the horizon like a fresh bruise. Ellie spent the remainder of the night at a friend's couch, adrenaline crashing into exhaustion. Her parents sped home by noon, faces pale enough to haunt cemeteries. At the hospital, antiseptic stung her nostrils. Monitors beeped steady heart metronomes. Mr. Smith's face was a roadmap of swelling and stitches, but his eyes glimmered grateful recognition. Mrs. Smith hugged Ellie so fiercely ribs popped, whispering thanks between sobs. No details, just fragments. The intruder claimed to know them. He'd been in town days, waiting for darkness and trust. Their dead son's memory had become a mask he wore to maneuver closer. Ellie shivered as she realized paranoia wasn't the villain in this tale. It was the guardian. Dark humor slipped out. Guess a burnt-out bulb's brighter than we thought. Mrs. Smith even laughed, a brittle, miracle sound. Back home, repairmen replaced porch fixtures, and the neighbors discussed installing cameras. But Ellie knew technology only records horror. It doesn't prevent it. She stood beneath the new bulb, light washing over her like absolution, and spoke to whoever might be listening. Crickets, cornfields, ghosts. In a world this quiet, she mused, silence is just a mask for screams. Her lesson carved deep. Never ignore the sentence your instincts whisper when the night feels off. She pictured some future viewer of this very story on a glowing screen, shivering, wondering if they would be brave enough to knock on that door. She answers for them, knock, listen, act, because heroes aren't the ones who outrun the monster. They're the ones who notice the monster exists before it knocks out every light. And with that, horror lovers, remember, keep one bulb burning. and never let fear talk you into silence. What's up, horror lovers? Asterisk ever tried to drift off while a relentless shink, PSHH, shink, PSHH asterisk echoes through the night like some demented metronome? That was the creepy lullaby haunting our poor newcomer, a modest everyman who just snagged his first house at a bargain price. Sure, the place looked a little tired and the neighborhood was no suburban fantasy, but a discount's a discount, right? Besides, the realtor, an old buddy named Tom, swore the next-door neighbors were quiet types. Quiet, huh? Keep that word in mind as you picture our protagonist lying in bed, eyes glued to the ceiling, wondering why Silence now wears steel-toed boots and stomps around at midnight. Buckle up. The next beat gets nastier than week-old coffee left on the counter. The days started peacefully enough. Fresh carpet underfoot, drinkable tap water, and dreams of renting out the spare room for extra cash. But every morning, one jagged sight split his optimism. The hole in Dave's backyard, 3 feet wide at first, yawning in the center of the lawn like an accusation. A dirt-caked shovel lounged nearby, sunbathing after whatever graveyard shift it had pulled. Maybe a vegetable garden, the newcomer muttered, puffing a cigarette on his balcony while convincing himself people dig quirks as well as soil. Yet each dawn, that circular scar glared back, a little wider, a little darker, while the shovel waited like a guard dog that only wags its tail at midnight. Night brought nightmares thick as tar. Heavy fists pounded phantom doors. Unseen footsteps lurked inches behind. Doom hovered like storm clouds that refused to break. He woke gasping, heart ricocheting against ribs, sweat cooling into a clammy second skin. One sunrise he shuffled outside and nearly dropped his coffee. The hole had doubled in diameter overnight. No tire tracks, no fresh footprints beyond Dave's yard, just that black mouth gaping wider, as if the earth itself were practicing a yawn. The question drilled into his skull. What could anyone possibly want to bury or unearth at 3 a.m? Midnight stakeout time. He sat in the living room nursing coffee strong enough to dissolve a spoon, waiting for the inevitable. Shink, PSHH, shink, PSHH. It started at 12 on the dot and clanged straight through 5. By dawn, patience had evaporated faster than cheap bourbon. He marched next door, rang the bell like a crazed door-to-door salesman, then pounded the wood for good measure. No answer. Through gritted teeth, he barked threats about municipal noise ordinances and personal vengeance with a side of boot leather before trudging home, lungs full of frustration and second-hand dirt stink. Phone time. Tom answered with the enthusiasm of a man caught cheating at cards. Digging. Weird, he mumbled, then fell into a radio-static silence so thick the newcomer could hear his own blood rush. I'd ignore it, Tom finally whispered, sounding like he'd just spotted something awful over the caller ID. Not helpful. That night, caffeine pumping and fury simmering, our hero stormed back, only to find the backyard gate wired shut like a crime scene barricade. And in the window, a pale 30-something stranger staring out, lips trembling as he pressed a finger to them, SH. Before backing into darkness, the digging stopped. A shovel clanged to the ground. Survival instinct roared louder than pride, and the newcomer bolted without ever glimpsing what lumbered toward that gate. A week crawled by. No more nocturnal shoveling, but the hole's depth was anybody's nightmare fuel. Curiosity finally overruled caution. Daylight reconnaissance. He vaulted the fence, eyed the crater now commandeering most of the yard, and dropped a 30-foot rope with a water bottle tied to the end. No thunk, no splash, just endless gravity. Hauling it up, he found the bottle slicked in thick, tar-black mucus that smelled like rusted pennies and rotten leaves. He abandoned the rope right there, hands suddenly allergic to mystery goo, and retreated, heart thundering like Dave's phantom shovel. Denial became his new best friend. He binge-watched sitcoms, blasted upbeat playlists, and muttered affirmations about minding my own business. Sleep slowly crept back until tonight. At 2 a.m., the metallic chant resumed, louder, closer, intimate. Shink, PSHH right behind his bedroom wall, as if Dave's project had tunneled under the property line. The house vibrated, picture frames rattled. Dread pooled in his gut like spoiled milk. Was the hole moving? Digging him in. rather than digging something out. He lunged for a flashlight and sprinted to his own backyard. Moonlight painted everything silver except the fresh mound of churned soil smack in the center of his grass. A brand new opening wheezed cold breath into the night, and from its rim dangled the frayed end of his abandoned rope, complete with that bottle, now crushed flat, as though sucked by impossible pressure. The shovel lay beside it, blade wet with the same inky sludge, handle imprinted by fingers monstrously thick. Somewhere below, a scraping resumed, slower, deliberate, like claws on sheet metal. Ever wondered what it feels like when your soul backs up toward your throat? He learned fast. His flashlight probed the void. Beam swallowed after a pathetic 2 feet. Then from the pit came a wet, rasping inhale, as if the earth itself had lungs and the newcomer's terror was perfume. Panic flipped to desperate humor. "Really, buddy?" he croaked into the hole. "Rent is high enough without you subletting the basement." Silence answered. Then the rope jerked, taut, centimeters at a time, as though something deep below were reeling him in. Fishing for fools. Each tug mimicked that old PSHH, but meatier, wetter, accompanied by faint crunches. Bones? Roots? Who takes the time to differentiate when primal flight reflex hijacks every neuron? He stumbled backward, tripped over his own fence, and crawled inside, barricading doors he knew could never truly seal. As dawn's first light leaked through blinds, the digging finally ceased. But the rope? Still pulled taut, still trembling with whatever now shared his property line. No, his lifeline. So, horror buffs, next time a house price feels too good to be true, remember our unlucky protagonist and ask yourself, what's really included in the deal? Square footage or an open invitation to the abyss? Sleep tight if you can. Ready to feel your stomach drop faster than a busted elevator in a cursed hotel? Picture this. You stride into your building humming your favorite song, only to hear that exact track echoing back from the floor below, like the building's running a pirate radio station of your life. Harmless coincidence. Cute. That echo's about to steal your perfume, quote your late-night texts, and wink at you from the mirror like a knockoff DVD you never bought. Dim the lights, crank the volume, and keep one eye on the hallway, because Maxine's tale proves the scariest monster might be the better version of you, waiting downstairs for its cue. And trust me, when the chorus hits you'll beg to skip, but the doppelplay button is jammed, baby. Maxine, 20-something marketing rookie, thought remote work meant quiet mornings and bargain bin coffee. Her best city friend, Joe, big grin, bigger conspiracy podcast habit, lived 3 doors down the block. Daily routine. Crush emails, then rendezvous in Max's 5th-floor shoebox for caffeine and gossip. Joe became the lone witness to the weird soundtrack under Max's life. He heard the neighbor spin every obscure indie banger seconds after Max hit pause. Rain rattled cracked stairwell glass, leaving the corridor smelling like wet cardboard while Max muttered, "My playlist has a stalker." Joe only chuckled. Maybe they're your soulmate, or the deluxe edition of you. A chill crawled up her hoodie sleeve. She blamed thin walls until the downstairs speakers started mirroring her binge-watch sessions with sinister, frame-perfect accuracy. Tuesday, a niche doc about vanished hitchhikers. An hour later, the same frantic narrator boomed beneath her floorboards. Wednesday, a whisper-quiet rom-com, followed by identical giggles beneath her feet at midnight. Earbuds became religion, noise-canceling, blessedly silent. Yet the building still leaked tiny clues, as if the mimic neighbor owned a ceiling-pressed stethoscope, hungry for Max TV. Creepy coincidence. Hold tight. The next part stomps that word flat. One gusty afternoon, paranoia went pro. Joe persuaded Max to knock on the mimic's door. The hall smelled of mothballs and overbrewed black tea from the elderly lady next door, while the target door offered nothing. No mat, no shoes. Just an unnerving hum of bass. Joe knocked. Cardboard scraped inside. No answer. "Hello." Silence. The old lady peeked out, parchment eyes twinkling. "Young woman lives there. Poor thing never leaves." Cue a fake smile, a fib about a lost package, and a retreat upstairs. Max laughed it off, yet the echo laughed louder. If introverts were Olympic athletes, that girl just set the indoor hermit world record. The mimic leveled up from digital stalking to culinary cosplay. Max sautéed garlic for linguine. Later, the identical aroma, garlic, cheap red wine, sizzling butter, poured from below like deja vu dipped in marinara. Groceries? None delivered. Max camped by the peephole. Only the old lady tottered past with cat food. Then came the perfume. Her unique, mom-mixed floral citrus cloud wafting thick through the hall. "That's my childhood, back off," she hissed as goosebumps spelled RUN across her skin. "Hold tight, the next part is worse." This scent was the predator licking the air. Fed up, Max fled to her half-abandoned office, basking in flickering fluorescence that hummed like hornets. 3 blessed days, silence. Friday evening shattered with a metallic snap. Her key no longer fit. The landlord, sweaty, surly, one staircase from a coronary, opened the door 1 floor down using Max's key. Inside waited a terrifying diorama of her life, built entirely from cardboard. Chair, shoe cabinet, photo frames sporting hand-drawn bodies with faceless heads. Marker fumes and glued dust clogged her throat, while the walls whispered with papery rasping, as though some arts and crafts demon was 3D, printing her existence on a budget. She staggered into the stairwell when a 5-note jingle, "Dun dun do do dun," sliced the air. Looking up, Max found her doppelganger draped over the railing. Same auburn waves, same coffee-stained band tee. Face just a degree off-center, like melted wax rehardened wrong. Their eyes locked. Instinct screamed push her, but terror glued Max in place. The echo's mouth stretched in a silent O, mirroring Max's shock, before it ghosted upstairs, into Max's real apartment, and slammed the door with predator finality. Max sprinted through night-slick streets to Joe's place, lungs on fire, ears still ringing with that cursed jingle. Shaking on his couch, she unloaded the entire nightmare. Joe listened, unnervingly calm. "Some copies need seasoning," he said, voice bright as an infomercial. "Took me weeks to feel perfectly real." His grin glinted plastic. Then Joe's phone chirped, the same 5-note tune. Max bolted. Joe called after her, almost kindly. "She's the better version of you." Why would a finished product chase obsolete stock? 11 sleepless hours later, Maxine hid at her parents' rural house. Try telling cops about identity theft by cardboard pod people, and see how fast you're in a wellness check. Weeks passed in herbal tea haze, yet the world wouldn't let her forget. The jingle bled from supermarket PAs, a kid's mobile game, even bank hold music. Each time, her skin prickled like a progress bar labeled replacement inching upward. She scanned crowds for waxy almost faces, tallying how many friends, how many parents, might already be shinier models. Spoiler, the count keeps climbing. Moral of the nightmare? Guard your quirks like sacred relics. When a stranger's window blasts your obscure playlist, don't grin, kill the speakers. When your one-of-a-kind perfume floats through the hallway, don't inhale, evacuate. And if that jaunty 5-note jingle ever sets your nerves on fire, remember Maxine, remember Joe, and remember your chatty narrator. Imitators can be upgraded, but the human soul has no cloud backup. Stay spooky, keep the volume low, and watch the floor beneath your feet, because the best things and the worst imposters still happen in the dark.